In this case, I am graphing a cotangent function. Here I have y equals 2 cotangent of x over 3. So in this case, a is 2, b is 1/3, c is 0, and d is 0. So the period is pi over b, or pi divided by 1/3, which of course means we have to multiply by 3 over 1, and this leads to 3 pi. So the period is 3 pi. The x increments for my key points 1/4 times 3 over pi, so I get 3 pi over 4. Now, since we have a cotangent, the left asymptote, we start by setting whatever our argument here is, x over 3 equal to 0. X over 3 set it equal to 0, because the cotangent is cosine over sine, and whenever the sine is 0, the cotangent is undefined, and that's why we need an asymptote there. So in this case, x over 3 is 0. If you solve for x, you get x equals 0 is our left asymptote. The right asymptote now would be, we're setting it equal to pi, because again, that's where the sine is 0 next, so we multiply by 3 and we get x equals 3 pi. And that makes sense because that is our period. So if I change color, I have my first left asymptote right here at 0. Oops. Hopefully you can see that. And at 3 pi. So now I have to find the other 3 key points in between. Let me change color again. Let's make them green. So I got to find this increment, this one, and that one. So let me write out my key points up here. Key points. Oops. My pen will not write. Key points. First of all, the LA is 0. Now we're adding 3 pi over 4 to 0, so that gives me 3 pi over 4, and that is my first key point here. 3 pi over 4, and since A is 2, that will be 2. Then I add 3 pi over 4 to it, and that gives me 6 pi over 4. So at 6 pi over 4, the cotangent is 0. And then I add another 3 pi over 4, that gives me 9 pi over 4. And at 9 pi over 4, I have -2 as my point. And then, of course, I have the right asymptote at 3 pi, and that makes sense because if I add another 3 pi over 4 to 9 pi over 4, get 12 pi over 4, which reduced, of course, is pi over 3. Now I'm going to plot my points. So 3 pi over 4, the cotangent here is 2 because of the amplitude. Then we go to 0, and then we go to -2. So my cotangent looks more or less like that. Here you go. This is one period for the cotangent. If you have to graph 2 periods, of course, you would keep adding 3 pi over 4. That's the cotangent of x over 3.